What's good, everybody?
Better.
I'm in the trailer with my man Drew here. Revolution Mobile Bike Repair, your go-to guy for any repairs or any service needs when you're in the area.
And
if
bikes.
Yes.
And
if
parts.
You happen to be buying parts.
And e-bikes.
E-bikes, DaVincis, this is your dude. He can ship directly to you, or better yet, you can come out here, experience the NWA for yourself, have some fun. And what we got going on today is a fresh swap of a drivetrain from XT to what?
We're going to run a SRAM GX T-type transmission today.
We're going to have Drew give us some expert tips and tricks because it's a little different from the way it was set up in the past, correct?
Yeah, it's very different. So most of the setup's done off the bike, believe it or not. So it doesn't take but a second to put everything on the bike once you got it set up off the bike. First thing we're going to do is kind of take the last little bit of the original pieces off. I've gone ahead and pulled all the old pieces off, gone ahead and put a new dub bottom bracket in. First thing's going to go in is this little red spacer piece. It goes in from the outside in, like that, okay? And that sits just like that. I've had a couple people put it in from this side and then it won't stay tight when you put it on there, the derailleur on there. First thing we're going to do is pop the crank on real quick. Like I said, I've already got the bottom bracket in. It's torqued to 50 where it's supposed to be. On this frame, there's no spacers on each side, so this is a pretty straightforward one. Notice that we are now on the dub wide standard. This is different than in the past. It's a new chain line for this group, so it takes different spacers to get it to go. If you're coming from a dub, typically you don't get a spacer on this side. It goes in here and you get a small spacer on this side only and you're done. So, but with the new wide, the spindle is longer, so you've got more spacers. I've already kind of pre-measured which ones go where. I know which two go on there. So we're a little ahead of the game. You always want to put the wider one on the drive side. And then we're going to go. So there's a good tip in here, even if you're not doing a transmission install, but a regular dub crank. Ideally, where you want to end up is when you get this sucker tight, there is a bearing tensioner on the non-drive side, this piece right here. Ultimately, we want it to turn less than a full turn. If you're having to turn it more than a full turn, you do not have the correct spacers. Done there, and then we're going to tighten this up, and it went about a half turn, so we know we're in the right spot. And then we're going to cinch it down with this little 2mm bolt. Crank done.
Quick break. I'm going to give my man his flowers. He is not one to really be braggadocious. He's very humble. He's very, very just low key. But he is one of the very few people in this industry that's been super honest from the day that I met him. He's reliable and he'll shoot you straight. If you need something, he'll tell you need it. If you don't need it, he'll be like, hey, I'll just clean it for you. You're good to go. And another thing is, I am not the emotional kind of guy. You can ask Liza about that. But I can't describe the feelings that I had, how happy I was when this man sent me the video of him ringing the bell when he beat cancer last year.
That was a tough one. But we're glad to be done. I'm very happy. This
man took cancer on and beat it.
Man, it's a lot because of friends like you. And it was not fun. I'm glad to have it behind me. Nothing but good things going forward. So.
Yes. So this man is a testament to willpower. If you're going through something like that, feel free to reach out.
Absolutely.
We'll get some support for you. I love this man.
Love you, buddy. All right, so we've had the battery charging over here for a little bit while we have kind of been setting some other things up. Like I mentioned just a second ago, most of the install is done off the bike. We're going to load the battery, make it click. We saw a green light here. Then we're going to pair it to the shifter pod. This is a new design shifter pod. If you're familiar with Axis, it's a little different looking. The little pair button is on this side of the derailleur. So basically what we're going to do is hold this button until it flashes green. and then we're going to hold this button, and it's going to pair or quick flash, and it's paired. So now we should have a working derailleur. And we do. So we're good. I'm working inside the SRAM app here. You'll need that for the download. You'll set up the bike. I've got Andy's bike already figured out here. We're now going to authorize the device, so we're going to go back and do the same thing that we did just a second ago. It's asking us to hold the button on there until we get a flash green. We're going to authorize it through the app, and we're good. You can see the derailleur and the shifter pod are both on. Next thing we're going to do is set it up. So like I mentioned, we're going to do the majority of it off the bike. The two important things here are there is a proper key setup, this little AB here. There is the proper chain length, which we're going to do, and we've got a way to measure it on the front of the box. So those are our two big steps. And then we're going to use our little chain length and setup guide here. Some of the newer bikes are in here. I would always recommend going with my bike is not listed and follow through with that. So the other thing you have to go find out is chainstay length, chainring size, and whether we're doing a full suspension. I have already got the DaVinci Troy geometry pulled up. We're looking for chainstay length. We're at 435 on a medium. So we're going to go back over here. 435. Chainring size on this bike, I believe, is 32. We are on a full suspension. We do not have one of those new idler pulleys that are the high pivot, so this is a traditional. So no frame there. Calculate. Here are our setup pieces. We're going to use setup key A. Our chain length is going to be 116 for our chainring, and our setup cog is T21 tooth. So we're going to pull this up, 6 gears up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, gets us to the 24T, 5 gets us to, actually we're going to do this backwards, 7 gets us to the 21T, and which one are we? 21. So, and I think this is a mistake that people make. That 7th gear is from the biggest, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I think a lot of people do it backwards, count from the inside. So we want the red, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down from the top. So the way we're going to get there, I have already set the derailleur down and I have bumped it up to where it is as far inside as it can go. That would be the first gear. I'm going to come down 6 more because I'm already in the first one. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that puts it in the 7th gear. So we're already there. The next thing we have to do, this little key setup here. So we're going to go back to our thing. We're going to using the A setup, and we're in the B spot. See that little mark? So we're going to take this out, and we're going to flip them over. Now we're set with that. So the derailleur's in the proper gear and in the proper key. That's done. So we're now ready to install the chain, and we're going to do this a little different than what it says, just because Andy's going to move from a 32 to a 34 chain ring. So I'm going to cut the chain for a 34. We've already looked and we know how long it's supposed to be. And if you'll look on our app, it's telling us we need to cut it at 116 for a 30 or a 32. We know that when we go up to a 34, the chain goes up to 118 links. So we're going to cut there. So if you're staying with a 32, cut it at 116. And here's the way you're going to do it. You got a little measuring guide up here, and you're just going to simply lay it on top of here. 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18. If you were going to cut it for the right length, 17, 16 would be our cut. We're going to do it at 18, knowing that Andy's about to go up to a bigger chain ring. Our derailleur set up. Our chain's done. Our crank is on. We're ready to put the group on. I mean, we're 5 minutes from being done here. So the first thing we're going to do is mount the derailleur. It goes on both sides of this. And one thing we haven't mentioned, you do have to have a bike with a UDH, a Universal Derailleur Hanger Standard, SRAM standard for this to make it work. So we're gonna put this on not tight, but back loose, okay, to where it's floppy and hanging there. We're also, the first thing we're gonna do is put it in the chain lock position. We're gonna go ahead and mount the rear wheel. And we're also gonna leave this one full or a little more revolution loose. Very important. This has to be loose, the axle has to be loose. Okay, we've got our cut chain already. And this is where things get, and they've been different so far, is if you'll notice on this derailleur, there are no B-limits, there are no high and low screws. It is all done by how the derailleur mounts on the bike and all of our setup things that we've already done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is our 21 tooth. Chain goes right there. See the arrow? There is a correct direction on how this link is supposed to be installed. This is the way your chain travels, up through and around clockwise. So we know that this link is going to go on the outside. That's our chain travel direction. Make those two match. We're going to come back to here. Here's another piece that's different. We're going to set this on our setup cog. So we've got it in the A. And Andy, if you get down right there, you can see the end of that is right on that A mark. So we're not in our full open cage lock position, right? We're down here. And this is the setup position for the bike. And it's based on our app told us we're supposed to be in A. So we've got it there and locked in the correct position. So I'm gonna lock this in place. You can hold the rear brake, pop the crank, locks it in. Okay, so now our chain's locked on. Our axle's loose. This is loose. We're gonna take our wrench. We've got it in our lock position here. I'm gonna move it to our correct setup cog, which in this case is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're simply gonna push this back until the chain is tight, and you're gonna tighten this down. We're gonna torque this. It's on here, it's 35, and you're gonna do this carefully. And you're gonna do it with a torque wrench. That's in its correct position. Now we can tighten the axle. And we're done. It's gonna be maybe a slight trim adjust, but that is as simple as it can get. It's a little slow coming up. So the shifting adjustment is done the same way that it's done on the axis group. You hold the button here, and whichever way you want the derailleur to trim, you push the button like it's going to shift. So I'm wanting to shift a little. I want the chain and the derailleur to move that way a little bit in the trim position. So I'm going to hold the button. I'm going to give the shift button that sends the chain that direction 2 clicks. That's it. It's done. I mean, it is that simple. No B's, no high-low limits. It's all done from that setup key and how you set up the derailleur and the chain off of the bike, and then it just goes right on.
So with this being set, there really isn't much reason for change here unless you do what, Drew?
The only time that this would, if for somehow this came loose and it moved down, or you hit it, something weird happened, this moved out of position, then you would reset it.
Okay.
Or you change your chain ring size. If you went smaller, you may have to cut your chain again off the measuring tool. If you went bigger, you could need a new chain. We were taking that into account when we did this one, knowing that Andy's going to a 34 off a 32. So the chain is a little long for this setup, but it will be correct when we put his 34 ring on.
Drew, when people are installing this and they're kind of rushing through it, they're not even trying to look at the instructions because they're like, I know what to do. I've done this before. What are some of the mistakes that people tend to do?
So the mistakes that people are going to make, I think counting from the wrong side on the gears. That's an easy mistake. If weren't paying attention to the app, somebody might have done that the first time or two he installed it until he figured that out. So that's one. The second is tightening this bolt with the axle tight would cause big problems. You wouldn't be able to get the axle out if you tighten that with this side tight. So be sure you loosen that. Be sure you loosen this. There are good videos on that app that will walk you through every step of this just like we did.
All right, everybody, you saw how simple that was. That really didn't take a whole lot of time. I'd never done that process, and it was actually kind of shocking to see how quick
It's quick.
he basically just slapped it on. I mean, he did a lot of work prior to putting it on. Like you said, it's most of the setup's off the bike, but once you get the digital end of it all set up, it's pretty straightforward. And this system has been proving itself pretty durable out here in NWA, right?
It is.
Yes, I hope you liked that, gave you some insight. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I will direct them towards this guy, the pro. And if you're in the area and need anything, service, parts, a new Da Vinci, give him a shout. Revolution Mobile Bike Repair. All his info is down in the description. I will see you next time, guys. Peace.